Back in January this year, we were bored and watching GDQ when a run of Halo 3 came on. The run was pretty sweet, but it really made us want to play Halo 3 again, like back in the day. Luckily, we had all bought the MCC back when Reach came out, so we all owned all the Halo games. We just never played them as they came out. So this was a great opportunity to hop back into Halo. We only did a casual playthrough back in January, but it did spark that achievement hunter completionist in me that saw the 700 achievements in the MCC and got really excited. We took a couple month break and got distracted with other games. But with Halo Infinite getting a hopefully final release date this winter, we thought it'd be pretty fitting to try to 100% the MCC, maybe before Infinite comes out, who knows? And so me and my friend Finney have been trying to 100% all the games, and we started with Halo 3 because we started with that back in January, so it felt kind of fitting to begin with this. So Halo 3 takes up 89 of the 700 achievements in the MCC. I've separated all of these into different categories, and I'll be covering each and every one. So let's get started. First up are the campaign completion and par score achievements. Each level of the campaign has an achievement for completing it, as well as an achievement for beating the par score on the level. If you didn't know, the game has a basic scoring system where kills give points, but taking too long causes your points to drain. So each level has a set score that you need to beat. These scores aren't really too hard to beat, especially if you have the 4x multiplier from just playing on Legendary, which of course we did because we're adults. So we knocked out these par score achievements as we completed our first Legendary playthrough of the campaign. So let's get started with that. The campaign starts out with Master Chief bailing from that ship from the end of Halo 2. I don't know why he bailed from this. He could have just stayed on and it would have skipped like half the campaign. Whatever. Chief slams down somewhere in Africa and his animations get all wonked. Johnson and his boys find Chief and turn the animations back on, and Chief immediately tries to kill the Arbiter, who's also here by the way. Johnson tells Chief, whoa, you need him to be your player too, dude. And so Chief and Arbiter walk off into the jungle to start Sierra 117. Johnson gets captured by some brutes and then brought to the end of the level, so Chief fights through those brutes and then frees Johnson. Then they all hop on a Pelican and head to the next level. The gang arrives at Crow's Nest, where Miranda Keyes fills them in on what the heck is going on. They're then politely interrupted by Lord Hood, who then gets rudely interrupted by Truth. Turns out Truth didn't like what Chief did in Halo 2, so he's attacking Crow's Nest. Miranda then orders for evacuation, and a Marine asks her where they should go. She replies,
"To war."
What? Chief then runs around in circles on Crow's Nest until they decide to actually blow it up, and then boom! And then he's on to Savo Highway, where he just drives around on a Warthog, shoots some guys, then drives around on a chopper. Nothing really happens here, he's just kind of driving. Then it's on to the Storm. Chief just starts blowing stuff up. He's blowing up anti-air raids, he's blowing up scarabs, he's blowing up a big Covenant gun. With only a plasma pistol, by the way. But uh-oh, Mr. Covenant just opened up a slip space jump to the Ark, and he's sucking everybody in. But wait, what's this? Another portal? Yep, looks like the Flood have decided they want to be in this game too, so they just slam into the area, and that brings us to Floodgate. Uh-oh, the Flood are here now. They're not really as threatening as you'd think they'd be. Master Chief just kind of walks on past most of them, and this just ends up being one of the shortest levels in Halo history. But then there's a super important cutscene after that. If you skip it, the game doesn't make any sense. Guilty Spark shows back up and just starts blasting Cortana. What the hell, dude? Stop! Chief and Spark then get sucked into the Shadow of Intent and then talk with everybody for a while until deciding maybe the Ark is a good thing to go to. So everybody gets all geared up and ready to go to the Ark, and then they go on through the portal. Once they get to the Ark, Chief starts plowing through enemies and doing his usual thing. But then the Forward Unto Dawn needs to come in and drop off a bunch of tanks and infantry, so it comes in like... Chief then takes a Scorpion and starts blasting his way through everything and blows up a Scarab too. Then they come up to a Forerunner building where in it they find the Cartographer, which shows them the location of Truth. After that, Chief challenges this brute chieftain to a sick 1v1 and then hops onto a Pelican to the next level, Covenant. Oh boy, this is the big level. Truth is hanging out in that final citadel trying to activate all the Halo rings, but there's a barrier powered by 3 towers. So Chief, Arbiter, and Johnson split up and take each tower to themselves. Chief and Arbiter are able to take their towers and shut them down, but Johnson's is mysteriously not turned off. So Chief grabs a Hornet and just zooms over to it and turns it off himself. So now everyone storms that final citadel, and Marty and Mikey kick in with the dun 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 dun, so you know something cool is gonna happen. And then lo and behold, holy shit, 2 Scarabs come in, and you gotta... And then after that, Arbiter and Chief storm the final citadel and go up that big elevator, where we find out that Johnson had been captured again. Really? Turns out Truth needs him to activate the rings, but Miranda Keyes says and crashes her Pelican in. Johnson tells Miranda to kill him and herself, but then she hesitates and Truth shoots her in the back with a spiker. It's at this point that Arbiter and Chief show up on the elevator, and then the Flood are also here, by the way. I forgot to mention that. The Flood decide that they're the good guys now and help Chief cross the bridge to the end. Chief and Arbiter make it to the end, and Chief turns off the Halo rings and Arbiter stabs Truth and kills him. But uh-oh, turns out the Flood were actually the bad guys. Who knew? So Chief and Arbiter gotta run to the beginning of the bridge and jump down this little trash chute. And it's down here that they see the ring from Halo 1 that got blown up being rebuilt. And Guilty Spark tells them that they can fire a tactical pulse to destroy the local Flood, but they need to find a way to activate the Halo ring. Luckily, the Forerunners didn't change their passwords, so the activation index from the first game would actually work again, and that's with Cortana. So conveniently in the last level, the whole damn city of High Charity just showed up on the Ark, and that's where Cortana's been the whole game. But the city's overrun with Flood, so Chief and Arbiter fly into a little JPEG of the city and fight their way to the Flood to get to Cortana. Gravemind's not really cool with this, so he cranks the FOV up to 200 and yells a lot. Chief then reunites with Cortana and slaps her in his head like old times. And then everyone heads off to the newly built Halo ring, which starts the final level, Halo. Arbiter, Johnson, and Chief fight their way through the Flood and make it to the control room. And then right when they're about to activate the Halo ring, Guilty Spark realizes they're about to blow up the Halo ring, so he's like, wait, that's my life, and then he becomes evil and blasts Johnson. So Chief blasts Spark right back and then kills him. But sadly, the blast from Spark was enough to kill Johnson too, but Chief still has a mission to finish. So he activates the ring, which causes it to start falling apart. So Chief and Arbiter head out and grab Johnson's Warthog and start the coolest section in any video game ever. They drive around the remains of the Halo ring while everything's falling apart around them, and they eventually make it to the Forward Unto Dawn at the very end, where they jump into it and almost get crushed by their own vehicles and die, but then they get away because the Forward Unto Dawn zooms up into the sky. But then the Halo ring explodes, which kills all the Flood, but also destroys the Ark and splits the Forward Unto Dawn in half. Arbiter and the Chief are separated in the different halves of the Forward Unto Dawn, but Arbiter somehow gets back to Earth. I'm not really sure how, but Chief is left on the other half of the Dawn, where he asks Cortana to put him into cryosleep until he's needed, coming full circle from Halo 1, where he woke up from cryosleep in the beginning. What a perfect little ending. I'm glad they didn't continue this in some other game and just let him rest in peace. But that takes care of the campaign achievements. There were 9 levels in total, so you got an achievement for completing each one, and an achievement for completing the par score for each level as well. And then, since this is a good video game, you also got the achievements for completing the game on easy, normal, heroic, and legendary just for doing it once on legendary. And then lastly, there's an achievement just for getting all the par scores. So that knocks out the first 23 of our 89 achievements. After we finished up the campaign, the next set of achievements we went after were the ones involving the collectibles and Easter eggs found throughout the game. The first group of collectibles we tackled were the skulls. In each of the campaign levels in the multiplayer maps from the Mythic Map Pack, there are these human skulls just kind of hanging around in random spots. It's up to you to find them and snatch them up, and that'll net you an achievement. Some of the skulls are just sitting out in the open, like on Sierra 117, where it's just hiding behind some bushes at the beginning of the level, or Heretic, where it's just sitting below this vent in the middle of the map. Others are just slightly off the beaten path, like the one on Halo that's like, if you just make a slight right at the beginning, there's this tiny little cave that is hiding it. Wow, very hard to find. Or this one on Sabo Highway that is just hiding behind this pipe and you just need to go up and over it to get to the skull. But then there's the skulls that require a little bit more finesse to get to. These skulls are usually placed in some weird high up place and you gotta figure out how to get up there. Most of the time you can just do a simple grenade jump to blast yourself up, or do a nifty little jumping puzzle like this one on Cortana. And then there's some that require extra tools, like on the Ark, where you need to bring a grav lift with you so you can get up to the top of this room. Or on Citadel, you need to use the Forge monitor to squeeze yourself into this tiny little nook where the skull's hiding, and then you have to transform back into a Spartan and grab the skull at the same time in order to actually get it. And lastly, there's a couple super secret skulls that are just downright cryptic. Like, take Floodgate for instance. You're like, oh, all the other skulls have just been hidden in some area, so we just gotta find it somewhere in the level. Nah, dude, it was actually attached to this single Flood guy that jumped over you in the beginning of the level. I didn't even know you could shoot the guy. I thought he was just like cool scenery to set the spooky mood of Flood. But no, he's holding onto the skull and you just kill him and he'll drop it. Or the one on Sandbox. I figured it'd be hidden in a corner somewhere on the map. Technically, I wasn't wrong, but they did put it way out on the very edge of the map. So I guess you just gotta walk on out there and get it. That's not really that too. Oh, okay. Well shit, how do we get it then? There's actually a number of ways to get to it. Most people will just spawn a set of teleporters and then carry one end all the way out to the skull, and then just teleport in and grab the skull. Some people put together a safety tunnel in Forge and drive all the way out there with a mongoose. I wasn't able to get this one to work. Others create a massive pile of trip mines that overloads the map and shuts down the Guardians, so you can just walk on out there and grab the skull. I used the method where I stuffed myself inside of an L block and just flew out there and prayed that I didn't blow up. After a bunch of attempts, I was lucky enough to survive my way out there and actually drop the teleporter and then grab the skull. I think the coolest part about this skull is the variety of solutions available to actually get to the skull. It's very fitting for a map designed around player creativity and freedom to require the player to actually get creative and come up with a solution that works for them. Lastly, there's the hardest skull to find in the game, the I Would Have Been Your Daddy skull. This is another skull that's not just lying around on the map, and you need to actually spawn it in. But how do you spawn it, you might ask? Well, you gotta recreate the last 7 notes of the Halo chant, you know, the But how do you get the notes to make up this chant? Well, each Halo ring projection on that final bridge on the level Covenant is humming a different note. What, you didn't realize? Come on, it's just basic music. Obviously, I noticed this the second I walked onto that bridge and definitely did not Google the solution. But using that code you looked up online, you can jump through the Halo rings in that order and it'll recreate the Halo chant like this. And after that, you'll get a nice little light show with the Halo rings, and then the skull will appear at the end of the bridge. And you can just scoop it on up, and that's it for the skulls. These are actually pretty fun to search for. There were 19 in total, and you get an achievement for getting each one, and then there's 2 achievements for finding all the campaign skulls and all the multiplayer skulls. So that'll add 21 to our total and bring us up to 44 out of 89, and that'll take out like a fourth of the total. So we're just plowing right through these. The next set of collectibles are the Forerunner terminals. There's actually a bunch of these scattered throughout the latter half of the campaign. You just pull up the terminal, scroll through all the dialogue in it, wait for the screen to get all evil, and then you get your achievement. These are more obviously placed than the skulls, and they contain lore. I think these flesh out a side story with the librarian and the didact, and also Mendicant Bias, who are characters that I don't really know about because I'm not too deep in the Halo lore. If you were interested in the lore, there's an insanely good video put together by Installation00 where he gathered a bunch of voice actors like Steve Downs to narrate the story of these terminals. The production value on it is insane, and it's a really good listen if you're interested in the extended Halo lore. Anywho, they're necessary for completion though, so we had to find them all. There's nothing really crazy or fun involved with finding these. They're usually just sitting in the corner of a room. For some reason, they're usually just placed right before points of no return, which is really annoying. So if you happen to miss a terminal, then whoops, guess you gotta play the whole level again. Haha, I got pranked, idiot. These were definitely my least favorite collectible, but that's probably just because I wasn't invested in the lore at all. Anyway, there were 9 of these total, and you get an achievement for finding each one, as well as an achievement for finding all of them. So that knocks out 10 more. The last group of collectibles are the super secrets. These are hidden Easter eggs and developer jokes scattered all around the campaign and multiplayer maps. All of these require you to view or listen to something in the world, and you get an achievement for finding each one. For instance, there's this missing link family on Sierra 117 that most people probably came across when they first played Halo 3, and were like, what the heck is this? There's actually 2 other missing links hidden in the same level too. Like the first one's in that section where the pelican gets shot down. It's back in the trees over there. And then there's the third one at the end of the level. It's hidden far off in the distance past where the pelican lands. No, not there. Zoom over to the left. Little more. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. There it is. Look at there. Boo. Did I scare you? There's also some hidden Easter eggs on the multiplayer maps, like this tiny hippo on Foundry that you need to like clear out the area and zoom in on to find, or these seasonal sigils on Valhalla. These are only viewable on certain holidays throughout the year, but luckily you can change your date and time settings to be able to jump to any date you want, which is nice, saved me a lot of time. Then there's some fun little developer jokes placed around the maps too, like these hidden pictures of Jason Jones on a missing person poster, or a picture of him hidden away in a corner on the level Halo, doing whatever's going on in this picture, I'm not really sure. Then there's the developer Chris Carney's face. They stuck him on the moon in Standoff. Look at him just creepily watching over your multiplayer game. There's some other hidden dialogue Easter eggs to find too, like the grunt on the final level who's just sitting there at the end.
Who are you? Stolen at the age of 6 and conscripted into the military?
Or the most annoying Easter egg of all, Flip Yap. You need to listen to a grunt say a specific piece of dialogue when a nearby grunt dies.
You killed Flip Yap! Or Yap Flip! Yap Flip! No, Flip Yap is his brother! Don't tell me I don't know Flipjap!
This Easter egg essentially requires you to have the I would have been your daddy skull on, so that rare dialogue is more common. But even then, it's completely random whether the grunts will say the correct line. And the achievement doesn't even pop until the grunt finishes the complete 20 seconds of dialogue. So if the grunt is murdered while grieving over his buddy Flipjap, whoops, no achievement for you, loser. Lastly, there's some hidden music Easter eggs. I can't really show these very well because they're audio, but most of them involve you just walking to a certain spot and listening to a music cue. Take the one on high ground, for instance. There's this little radio under the table that will occasionally play Morse code. If you sit around it long enough, it'll eventually play Under Cover of Night from Truth and Reconciliation from Halo 1. And then there's the Siege of Madrigal Easter egg. This is a song from another one of Bungie's games, Myth, and it's hidden somewhere in each of the Bungie-made Halo games. For Halo 3, it's hidden on the level Covenant. You need to take a Hornet up to the top left of the final tower and walk along this beam until you get to the very end, and it'll start playing this song. There's also a neat little Easter egg in this section that's not really tied to any achievements, but on the other side of the tower, if you go to the same spot, there's some hidden Microsoft Sam dialogue that the developers snuck in.
Happy Easter, Marty. OMG, this game needs more guitar wank. Am I right? I am a monument to all Marty's sins. LOLOLOLO. JMC Paul, part show totally fired.
I really enjoyed finding these secrets. Most of them are pretty simple to find, but I always love finding things hidden away by developers. It's always been something I've enjoyed, like just Easter egg hunting in games. But there was an achievement tied to each Easter egg, so that makes a total of 13 achievements that we can check off the checklist. And that'll bring us up to 67 out of 89. Next up is the Legendary Speedrun achievement. You have to beat the campaign on Legendary with a total time of under 3 hours. Initially, I read this and thought it needed to be all in a single session, like you needed to run through the entire campaign start to finish in one sitting. Luckily, it's not that. It actually takes your best times from each level and sums them up. With this, you're able to individually attempt each level until you have a good enough time. And then double luckily, each level has a par time associated with it, and if you sum up all the par times, they conveniently add up to under 3 hours. So you can just try to beat the par time on all the levels, and then you'll have a total time under 3 hours. This was one of my personal favorite challenges in Halo 3, since watching a GDQ speedrun was what initially caused us to start playing Halo 3. The run was by Sasquatch Sensei. He showcased a ton of tricks you can do to speed up the game, and the best part was that most of the tricks seemed actually doable. Most of them. There were a few where he whipped out the coordinate plane debug menu so he could line himself up perfectly for a backwards launch.
Oh, I thought you hit it. Oh, I thought you...
But after studying the speedrun and following guides made by Silver, the Halo completionist, seriously, go subscribe to him. His channel has step-by-step guides for like every achievement in the game. It's insane. We attempted the legendary speedrun. I'll highlight some of the cooler tricks since most of the speedrun just involves walking fast and skipping a lot of the game. On Sierra 117, there's a skip you can do that bypasses a trigger that would normally spawn a ton of enemies in the next section, but you can just jump your way up the side of this little rock here, and once you're at the top, you can scoot around the side and then drop down on the other side and you'll skip the trigger entirely. And this just bypasses the entire section. There's no enemies in here and you can just walk on through. On Crow's Nest, there's a sweet trick you can do with a grav hammer, and where you push this little grate up against a wall, then if you give it a smack in just the right spot and jump at the same time, you'll fling yourself backwards and fly over the gap behind you, and that just skips the entire section. On the Covenant, you can do some stylish grenade jumps to bounce up to the elevators and leave the room before enemies even know you're in there.
Oh, go, hit the button, go, go, go!
He's the greatest speedrunner the world has ever seen. The last cool trick of the run was on the beginning of the level Halo. You can do a couple grenade jumps or fuel rod jumps to boost yourself up to the Forerunner thing from Halo 1. If you make your way to the top of that and then jump over to where Johnson is on the cliff, you can actually kill him. He'll drop his Spartan laser. If you pick up his laser and take it away from him, he'll spawn with a second Spartan laser. And if you then kill him again and take that laser, it'll have infinite ammo in it. This really speeds up this section since you can just blast any flood with your Spartan laser from this little vantage point on the cliff. There's a lot of other nifty tricks involved with the speedrun, but those were the few I felt like highlighting. But without too much trouble, we were able to get all the par times on every level and finish the campaign with a time just under 3 hours. But overall, we had a lot of fun figuring out how to speedrun the campaign. It's amazing how many people have explored every inch of this game, searching for ways to get faster and faster. And what amazes me the most is that a majority of the tricks are easily doable. That's the main thing that usually scares me off of speedrunning, like overly complex, frame-perfect tricks. But the relative simplicity of Halo 3's speedrun was what made it really fun for me, and it has me really eager to attempt the speedruns for the rest of the MCC. Overall, there were 9 par times that we did for each level, and each of these awarded an achievement, and there were 2 additional achievements for completing all the par times as well as completing the 3-hour campaign on Legendary. So that brings us up to 78 out of 89. We're getting to the final stretch. There's a couple extra challenge achievements that need to be done too. These challenges require you to play levels of the campaign in a different way than you normally would. These involve placing a limitation on how you can play or completing something in a unique way. There's only a couple of these challenges, but the first set we focused on involved completing 2 of the vehicle-based levels without using any vehicles? It seems a little counterproductive to the level design, but I'm always down to try something different. So instead of cruising on Savo Highway with a Warthog or a Chopper, or beating everything with the Scorpion on the Ark, you're stuck walking your way through all of the level. This really does slow these levels down to a crawl. Like, the normally really short drives between firefights become long walks where you get to take in the scenery and think about why you're doing this. Like, why am I getting all these achievements? They don't matter. Like life's too short to do this. Why am I wasting so much time on? Oh, free dopamine hit. Look at that. I think this was the challenge that made me realize that maybe sprint does belong in Halo. I know there were a bunch of arguments against it when it was first put in Reach, but like, these long ass stretches on these bridges are just so slow and boring, and you're like, maybe sprint isn't so bad. Like, it would really speed up these challenges and make them way less painful. But I guess on a more positive note, one really interesting part of these vehicle-less levels is coming up with new approaches to certain sections of the levels, namely the ones where there are like other enemy vehicles. When you're normally playing these levels, you'll either drive past all the other vehicles or shoot them from far away with a tank. You can't do that here, so you need to find different ways to clear these sections. That usually involves just killing the drivers in enemy vehicles, or like using a plasma pistol to shut down vehicles so you can get closer. It's really not too different, but it did force you to actually engage with the enemies and the sandbox instead of just driving past them or shooting them from far away. And that's the part where I think Halo excels, is when you actually need to engage with the sandbox. So that was a fun part of this challenge, at least. These weren't really too bad. They forced us to play these levels in a different way that I never would have, which is pretty cool. And I always love when a developer throws a challenge out and wants you to experience something they've created in a different way. Which brings us to the next challenge. The next challenge is annual. You need to complete the final level of the game on Legendary with the Iron Skull turned on, and everyone needs to be in Ghosts. This was actually one of those Vidmaster challenges in the original Halo 3 that you had to do in order to get recon. I, A, didn't have the Halo campaign back in the day, and B, didn't have friends that wanted to attempt this back in the day, so this was something brand new for me. We recruited Drew and Walker to help us out with this one, and we got to work. But what actually makes this a challenge, though? Well, first is the difficulty. Legendary with the Iron Skull on means that the game is much harder, and there's no respawning. So if anybody dies, it's back to the last checkpoint for everybody. And second is sticking together during the Warthog run. The Warthog run is packed with triggers that cause the floor behind you to collapse. These can be triggered by anybody, so if one person gets too far ahead of the group, then the floor falls away for everybody else. So you need to stick close enough together so that you're not hitting these triggers way ahead of everybody else. But I'm skipping the most important part, the ghosts. It's the Warthog run. There ain't no ghost in that section. That's where you're wrong, bud. When the difficulty's set to Legendary, after you finish blasting Guilty Spark and Johnson dies, spoiler by the way, there will be 4 ghosts conveniently tucked away under a ramp outside. So all 4 of you need to hop into those and maneuver your way around the cliffs and through the Forerunner room from Halo 1, all the while minimizing damage done to your ghosts so they'll be as sturdy as possible for the run.
Ow! 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 Don't kill me!
But after that, you'll be at the final run with all 4 ghosts, and you just need to finish it. The run itself wasn't too bad. We had a few hiccups along the way. Like, we quickly learned that the Ghost doesn't really accelerate like the Warthog, so the Ghost can't make like certain jumps that the Warthog could easily make.
The line leader for line.
Oh! So we needed to adjust the path we were taking with jumps that the Ghost could actually make. We did have another small issue with my ghost somehow getting caught in one of the weirdest cracks ever. I don't even know how this happened. I was so pissed when it did, though.
There's the last level.
What the fuck?
The last.
My ghost!
Oh.
Reset.
Oh, Cole fell in the hole.
Another thing that kept happening was these giant pizza slices flying through the sky would just like slam right in front of someone and just stop them completely, and that cost us a couple runs. Oh my god. But other than these small issues, this really didn't take more than a couple tries. We formed a nice little V-ish formation and took the low road and cruised all the way to the final jump.
Got it.
You'll get ready for the screenshot.
Got it, chief. Epic. Oh,
Wait, we all got spun a little bit.
hey, there it is. Look at that. And suddenly we're a warthog. And that was it for annual. This challenge was really just a bit of practice for the next challenge, though. And this was Mind the Gap. 4 vehicles, 1 gap, on legendary, bunch of skulls turned on. So obviously this is talking about the only big gap in the game, the final "Gun it, Chief, jump" gap on Halo. You need to get 4 types of vehicles to that gap, and they all need to jump at the same time and be in the final picture. But wait, aren't there only ghosts and warthogs on that level? Ah, that's where you're wrong again. There's actually a hidden mongoose on the left at the start, and a hidden chopper tucked away behind some rocks after that. So each of us hopped into our separate vehicles and we started up the warthog run. We quickly found that this was actually going to be much harder than the Ghost run. Each vehicle has different top speeds, accelerations, and other properties that make sticking together a lot harder. For instance, the chopper is a lot slower than the other vehicles, but it does have this boost to help it keep up with the rest. It's a lot like that one Mario Party minigame, Insectaride, where everyone picks a bug vehicle and they all have different ways of moving, but they all can reach the end in the same amount of time. I took the mongoose initially and quickly found that it was like the hardest vehicle to use during this section. Like, you know these tiny infection form flood? With any other vehicle, you just drive right over them. But with the mongoose, they act as these massive speed bumps that just send your mongoose rolling out of control. Because of that, I ended up flipping a ton and falling behind in the start. Also, this happened too, and honestly, I have no idea what the hell. Whoa, I'm gone! What the fuck? I'm airborne!
We don't need to take that jump together. We don't need to go
I was
forward.
right behind you, Cole, and I just see you zoom into the sky.
I think the platform starting to fall caused some weird physics and just like whooshed me away up into the sky. I don't know, man. It was funny though. Luckily the Iron Skull isn't on, so when I get zapped and killed, since I'm the most exposed on the mongoose, Drew was able to take over my mongoose and have me respawn at the warthog on the next checkpoint. There was also a really cool moment where Drew's mongoose spun out of control and he had to stop before a ramp, and he didn't have enough speed to make the jump. So Finney did some quick thinking and actually saved the run with this move here.
I'm not even the arbiter. I'm random elite. That actually saved me, by the way.
Yep, I knew it.
What a champion.
Go.
Other than the mongoose issues though, the main problems we were running into was just sticking together and the sentinel lasers. Like over much longer stretches, the chopper would fall behind because it doesn't accelerate like the other vehicles. So we had to keep our speed in check so Finney on the chopper didn't get left behind. And then these stupid sentinel lasers would like shred up the mongoose and chopper drivers because their drivers are fully exposed, unlike the Ghost and the Warthog. So we kept having to restart whenever the sentinels felt like just blasting one of those drivers. But eventually we made it to the end. We lined up nicely and went down that final ramp together and lined up for that epic gamer photo finish at the end.
Yes! Did we get it?
Overall, this was the most fun of all the challenge achievements. It required us to completely change up our approach to the Warthog run. We had to actually find the proper route to go and stick together to protect each other from the sentinel lasers. But with that done, that's it for the challenge Wait, I didn't get the achievement. Wait, did we do something wrong? We clearly jumped at the same time. We were all in that picture at the end. Wait a sec, let me double check this. Halo 3, Mind the Gap. Gamp. Halo MCC, Mind the Gap guide. Oh yeah. My man.
What's up, guys? Silver here with another
here.
Halo match.
Wait, what is this achievement? I initially thought this achievement was for the final mission, getting the mongoose, chopper, warthog, and ghost into the forward unto dawn. Wait, we did that. Hold up. God, that would have been much better. It was better. That wouldn't be possible since the terrain quickly falls away behind you in that final run, so you can only get one vehicle there unless you play co-op. Wait, what? We did that. Wait, then what do you need to do for the achievement? Wait, it's on Sabo Highway? What? It's talking about that gap? The tiny one on the bridge? And you just need to get 4 Warthogs over that gap? Well, shit, that's kind of lame. Oh yeah, and the thing about it being on Legendary with all those skulls on, that was a lie too. It can actually be done on any difficulty, any skulls on. So we just loaded up Sabo Highway, slapped on Acrophobia so we could just float our way through the level. Each of us grabbed a Warthog as we went through the level. It did give us a little bit of time to play with Acrophobia, and it's such a fun skull being able to just float around on Halo levels. But eventually we made it to that tiny gap in the bridge. You just toss a grav lift down and lift the Warthogs over one by one. Ah, shit. Well, I guess it's not that simple, but eventually we got it. It was pretty easy, really. And that's it. Kind of lame compared to what we actually thought the achievement was. I wish that first run was actually an achievement because it was one of the most fun things I've ever done in Halo 3. But that's it for all the challenge achievements. There were 4 of these in total, so that brings us up to 84 out of 89. The last group of achievements is the other category. These are the more random achievements that don't really have a category that they belong to. Like there's one you just need to like play a match of Halo 3 on the 25th of any month, which if it's early July like it is now, you can just set your system time to the 25th and don't tell anyone. You can just cheat. Then there's another one that's just like kill 3 Phantoms, which you probably got on your first playthrough of the Covenant level where you're flying the Hornet blasts and Phantoms. And if not, you just play it again and you'll get it. There's 2 achievements involving completing playlists. There's one for completing 1 playlist and one for completing 3. I got the one for completing the first playlist by playing through the game on Legendary. And then I just did the Wheels, Wheels, and More Wheels vehicle level playlist and the mixing it up different combat scenario playlist. You just have to play through a few levels on each playlist and it's not really that bad. And then the last couple are the multiplayer achievements. You need to play 8 multiplayer matches on different Halo 3 maps, and then you also need to play 4 different multiplayer game modes. This was just like play the game for a bit, play the multiplayer, which I hadn't played much of the Halo 3 multiplayer from back in the day. I played a lot of the custom games and not the actual multiplayer, but it holds up really well. It's really fun and it takes you back to that slow, methodical gameplay that isn't really prevalent in today's shooters. Playing the multiplayer definitely made me realize this game is not made for mouse and keyboard. Like, I'd get match made with entire lobbies of people using controllers and I could definitely tell that I was just crushing them. But overall, I had a lot of fun with the Halo 3 multiplayer. It was a blast. It's aged perfectly and there's still a thriving population on the MCC, so it wasn't a hassle to find a game. So I'm kind of glad they put these multiplayer achievements into the game and forced me to engage with the Halo 3 multiplayer. But that's it for all the other achievements, and that brings us up to 88 achievements. And with that, we're done with Halo 3. Oh wait, hold up. I think I miscalculated a little. I think it was 89. What am I missing? I think I missed one. Oh shit.